Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me looking out on the new day. It looks like another sunny one, though I guess many gardeners are praying that we have some rain. We need both the rain and the sunshine, don't we, to grow? It's interesting that sometimes you come across something and you read a word or a sentence and it seems to just jump out at you and really speak to you and set your mind off on all sorts of directions. 2 or 3 months ago, Sue's elderly aunt, Joan, died at the age of 96. And Sue and I have been trying to sort through her remaining belongings. And incidentally, if anybody in Leicester knows a charity shop that's open to receive stuff, please do let us know. We desperately need to get rid of stuff. But anyway, Sue's aunt, Joan, her late husband, Eric, worked for some years for BP. And he became a BP pensioner. And when he died, Aunt Joan received a widow's pension. And one of the things that we came across as we were sorting through Aunt Joan's belongings was a brochure from the BP Pension Fund. And the title on the front cover really stood out to me. And can you see it? With a little faith comes a great adventure. With a little faith comes a great adventure. And that struck me as a fantastic title for a sermon, or indeed when somebody's trying to talk about what it is to follow Jesus. What a great title. With a little faith comes a great adventure. And the excitement of following Jesus should be evident in our lives. And when we make church boring, that's such a travesty, because life following Jesus is exciting. It's you never quite know where you might end up. When the first disciples heard the words of Jesus when he said, "Come, follow me," they had no idea when they said yes where that would lead, what adventures they would be involved in, what experiences they would share in with Jesus. Indeed, they didn't know then that he would lead Jesus to the cross and then the resurrection and then the commissioning. And almost all of the disciples ultimately were killed for their faith. So they didn't know where that would lead, what excitement and dangers was going to come their way. When I gave my life to Jesus at the age of 5, I had no idea really what that would mean, although I knew that I would have a friend who would be with me always, but I'd never even imagined that I would one day become a Methodist minister. And so many times over the years, it's led to me having to step out of the boat to take a leap of faith. Now, I wonder if you've heard of a gentleman called Smith Wigglesworth. Bit of a strange name. But Smith Wigglesworth was born in the year 1859, died in 1947. He came from very humble beginnings. He didn't have great skills. He was embarrassed to speak in public. He didn't really have a great vocabulary to use. I don't think he could write initially. So he really struggled in many ways. And yet God took hold of that man and used him over the years in amazing ways. He travelled not only around this country, but into many parts of the world, proclaiming the gospel and particularly speaking about God's power to heal. Very well worth reading about Smith Wigglesworth if you get hold of a copy of his biography. One of the bits of paper that I came across when I sorted through my own files recently was that I'd written quite a few of Smith Wigglesworth's quotes on a piece of paper. And I want to share one of them with you this morning. It's quite simple, 4 words. And Smith Wigglesworth said this: "Fear looks, faith leaps." And that reminded me of an incident from a few years ago that I'm still rather embarrassed about. We were with some of our family members. I'm not quite sure who was with us, but we had Sue and I and at least some of our children and grandchildren. And we came to this indoor play area, exercise area, and one particular item of equipment was this quite large slide, a big metal slide, and it's quite wide, so several people could go down at the same time. So you sat on the top and then you pushed yourself off and down you went this metal slide to a soft landing at the bottom. And the grandchildren were doing that several times. They loved it. And I thought to myself, well, if they can do it, I should be able to do it. So I sat on the edge of this metal little slope. Well, it's quite a big slope, actually. And I thought, I need to do this to show my grandchildren that I'm not afraid. And yet something was within me. There was a fear within me. And it wasn't a logical fear, but it was just a fear that was preventing me, almost as if it was gluing me to the slide. And I sat there for some time until I eventually, sadly, gave in. I gave in to those fears. I just couldn't do it. And so I stepped back and went back the other way. And I was hugely embarrassed. Still am hugely embarrassed, even talking about it now. But isn't that sometimes true in our Christian lives? That God calls us to some step of faith, calls us to speak to someone of our faith, calls us to offer prayer, or some other thing that God calls us to. Maybe God calls us to offer to the preaching ministry, or different kinds of calling God gives on, just like he gave to those first disciples. And fear somehow holds us back. It prevents us from taking that step of faith. So fear sees the dangers, but faith leaps. Faith says, it's dangerous, but I'm going to trust God and take that leap of faith. Have you ever prayed that prayer, God, give me more faith? I've probably prayed that many times, and yet on reflection, I'm not sure that it's a great prayer, is it? Because Jesus said, even faith as a mustard seed can move a mountain. So is Jesus saying that it's not the size of our faith that is the most important thing, it's in whom our faith is placed? I could have great faith that I'm Superman, and no, I'm not Superman, but I could have great faith and I could leap off a tall building, but that would do me no good, that faith, because it's wrongly placed. Our faith needs to be securely in Jesus Christ and in God. But we don't need massive faith to accomplish great things for God. That's what Jesus says. And the other thing is that faith, so often we feel that we need to work up faith. It needs to be we need to feel full of faith before we take action. No, we don't need to feel full of faith. Faith is not primarily a feeling. In fact, if we live our lives by our feelings, we're going to go wrong many times. Faith is an action. We don't know when Peter stepped out of the boat whether he felt full of faith, but the important thing was he took that step of faith. Sometimes God may call us to something, and we may, or everything within us may be wanting to hold us back, but it's the action that we take that expresses the faith within, even if that faith is just a tiny mustard seed of faith. And that faith comes through our increasing knowledge and trust in and intimacy with God. That's the important thing. When I, as a little child, was walking down a street, even if in a strange place I didn't know, if I had my dad's hand or my mum's hand, I would be full of faith because I trusted intimately, completely in them, that they would keep me safe. And the more we come to know God, the more we can say, God, I'm trusting you completely, because we know that he will never let us down. So don't think you need necessarily to have big faith. You need to have mustard seed faith, but faith in God. So don't let fear control your lives. Let faith allow you to take those leaps. And as the brochure says, with a little faith comes a great adventure. So God bless you on your adventure with Jesus.